Cookeville, Kavod Family podcast. Travis Shook, Danny Antoine. And we have some new guests with us, Cliff Graham and Rich Froning. How are you, sir?
Just marvelous.
Thanks for inviting us up.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. Glad to have you guys.
Yeah, this is a real privilege and honor in many ways, not just to be here with you. A lot of us have been fans, been a part of the CrossFit community for a long time. Travis owns a gym. He got his cert up here in Cookeville. When was that?
2019, 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it big difference, or did you meet Rich then? Or?
No, it was on the weekend, like Saturday, Sunday. I think Matt and Tia were in here training.
Okay, yeah, so that'd have been 2020, probably 2019.
Somewhere in there. It was low key. It was cool. It was huge. And then come back and see your store and the coffee shop and stuff. It's just cool to see.
Heck yeah, man.
But the culture is what I love. It's the ability for people to come in and grind and push, but the overall emphasis isn't how I look, how you look. I'm bigger, I'm stronger. There's Christian music playing. It's the culture, it's atmosphere. People are fist pumping, high five, and I'm like, this is cool. Yeah. It's one thing whenever you feel like you're doing it alone, and you go somewhere else and see it replicated, and then on a bigger scale, it's like, all right.
Yeah, you guys were in there earlier with our kind of life class, which is geared a little bit more towards seniors. Yeah. We tricked them into thinking, like CrossFit's dangerous. They're just doing CrossFit.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Now, man, those people get in there and grind, and
you
see it at a different level, right? Yeah. You know, and so, man, it's fun to walk in there, and we for years battled that elite CrossFit games. Right. I don't want to say stigma. Yeah, and so. Josh and some of the other coaches have done just a really good job of we're out of parking, in the evenings, especially. You've got kids in there. 5 years old is our youngest, and then 84-year-old Guy Hollings that we posted him on Instagram a couple months ago. He deadlifted 200 and plus pounds, and you're just like,
that's cool.
Yeah, getting after it, man. So it's the full. You've got kids, seniors, everyday people coming in there. I think Josh said 500-600 members, and then in the back, you go into the back, and it's like I always joke, it's like Wayne's World when he opens the door. All the ninjas are fighting in the back. You got the games level athletes in the back.
That's where Roman was earlier.
Yeah, that's where Roman was, and that's where those guys kind of hide out during the day when classes are going on, but they leak out, and man, they're part of the community too. That's cool. And so that's just what's special is you've got all walks of life, all levels of fitness, and they're just in there, like you're saying. Yep. We overhype, or I don't feel like we overhype. I feel like people from the outside think, oh, they're just overhyping the community aspect of it. But I mean, that's what makes it true.
Yeah.
Right?
Awesome. In the coffee shop on the outside of it, that was another really cool stroke to build that community. People hang out there. You can have a college student bring his notebook in and sip coffee while the gym is full. And I even too, when we walked into the merchandise shop, I love just the centrality of Jesus right there. I mean,
it's right there when you walk in, it's in your face.
It's like it's the first. It's not Rich Froning or CrossFit. When the first thing they see in there is just a reference to Christ right in their face.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That's who we are, man.
That's who it is. Yeah. So,
well, there's a reason why we're up here, and today's a special day. It's not just the National Day of Prayer. Did you guys know it was a National Day?
Of course. Yeah, I did. Of course I did.
My bad. Let me get in this book.
May 1st.
More prayers. There it is. What's today?
But we are like days away. In fact, everything's in place. We're just waiting for Amazon and KDP and Ingram and everything else to approve the finals on a brand new book. It's an expanded edition. It's a book that you wrote 2009, 2011.
Yeah, I started in 2005 originally.
So this is 20 years in the making.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And the reason we're here is, Rich, you've been affected by these books. Encouraged.
Yeah, that's an understatement, man. I love those books.
Okay.
That's the only way really to put it. I pass it along to a bunch of people. I've been through it multiple times. And, I've had my faith journey is pretty well known, but, obviously reading through the Gospels and all of that was huge. But David's story, man, I just connect so much with the trials, the failures, but the always being a man after God's own heart. And so I think, starting in 1 Samuel and just reading it, I remember on our honeymoon, mine and my wife's honeymoon, I was like, I'm just going to read, 1 and 2 Samuel. Man, I read the whole thing. And then when these came, I was right around the time, right after that, I think these came out, or I had come across them, and it just brought it to life. It was already like, I was like, man, this would be such a cool movie or such a cool book to be expanded on. And I don't even know how I got connected with it, honestly. And man, just fell in love. And honestly, a couple of us hand them out to any new hires at Mayhem for a while. And,
Nice.
man, I've passed it along to so many dudes and bought it for so many people. And I've read it multiple times. I listened to it, told you guys on the way on Leadville. I did the Leadville 100 the last 2 years. I listened to Day of War in 2023, I guess technically would be. And then in 2024, I listened to Covenant of War, because I'd read them so many times that I could zone in and zone out and pick right back up where I was at. And man, it's heck yeah, man. They're a foundation, and I think something that is greatly needed in our culture is the real stories of men, right? And awesome. I undersold it, maybe oversold it. I love him, man.
He was, Rich. What was cool about this? It wasn't like, because I didn't know who he was because I wasn't a CrossFit person. Are we on my microphones?
He's just trying to get in the footage. He just wants people to see.
It's all good.
Yeah. He's good.
We're not polished around here, right? A chicken might walk by.
We don't polish anything either.
I guess because I had not heard. What's cool about it was I had never heard of him because I didn't know anything about CrossFit at that time. This is like 2012, somewhere in there. You were right in the middle of you were the Michael Jordan of the sport, and it was but I just didn't know. That was what was funny about it. It's like, I think you Instagram messaged me saying, "Hey, big fan of the books. Would love to get this in the CrossFit community." I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Who's this guy?" And suddenly it was like I opened up a can of, "Oh, this guy." That's what. And so I think what's cool about that is I tell that story because you still have maintained a fundamental humility that is cool to watch. Like I met you when you were at that, right in the throes of back to back to back to back and all that, and even to now, Christ is first in your life, and that's cool. And it was a cool thing to kind of talk about because we both had a mutual excitement for the story of David's Mighty Men. Yes, they're my books. I wrote them, but I, like you, just love that story.
Man,
it's just a sweet story.
So easy to connect with.
Yeah. So anyway, it was. So we just connected.
What year was that?
I had to have been
11, 12, somewhere around then. It was.
What was going on in your life at that time?
Oh man, obviously right in the middle of individual stuff. Okay. I think just, there's.
Was your youngest born then?
No, my youngest was not born. That wasn't until 2014. I'm pretty sure I hadn't had Lakeland at that point. I bet if we went back on Instagram, it'd still be in there.
Talking about you guys.
Yeah. But probably going through infertility stuff. More for me at that point was the competitive. Like I was obsessed, man. That was my sole mission was, one, to tell as many people as I could about Jesus, but then I wanted to win the CrossFit Games. And every day that I woke up, that's all I thought about, right? And so there's so many of those things that that you connect with in those books, and even as life goes on, you see kind of that what happened to David, and you're like, there's good things you can learn from him and bad things as well. As even I was just talking to my buddy Father Stephen, he was just on Sean Ryan's podcast, great dude. And we were kind of back and forth, and life is chaos, right? But I kind of thrive in chaos, and I need to have a goal. I'm not a goals guy, but I need to have something to aim at, or else the time when kings go to war, I sent that to him the other day. And I was like, I connect with that because when life is easier, when life, that's been my big thing, is like staying present, staying in the word, staying committed when it's easy. It's easy to be close to God when it's tough, right? When you need something, it's easy to be like, all right, Lord, I need you. What are you trying to do? But when things are good, you got to you almost not have to manufacture chaos. But, I thrive better in chaos because then my mind can't wander, I get hyper-focused. So I don't really know if I answered your question. I kind of, I did a little Trump weave there, but anyway, and so, yeah, man, I just think they're so timeless. Obviously the Bible is timeless, but I think these stories and the men in these stories, so many of us can connect with, and not just David, like Benaiah and the stuff that he went through, and then the three, and man, it's just, they're awesome.
Yeah. So we were, just to piggyback on that. That was around the time he was,
if I could find one,
just, back to back in the whole thing on the individual stuff. And then I remember him saying that same exact thing. He came out to Utah when I was living there, and we got to hang out for a few days there. That was really cool. And just same deal. Talking about what this is about, and just seeing the connective tissue between us and I think the reading audience of this, we all share the desire for the hearts of men to be reached, with the word of God. And this is not the word of God. I mean, that is not what this is. So, but what I do think it is a door that opens for people that would never normally have thought about the Bible that way before. That's always been the mission of this thing. So for what we're talking about, I don't think this is Day of War. This was the first book in my Lion of War series. Started working on it 20 years ago. It's been through several journeys. I made every mistake under the sun in the process of this, and hurt a lot of people, caused lots of trouble. But God has been faithful, and Kavod Ministries has come along to help to really empower, retool this thing, and get it back out there for it's a redemption story about a redemption story in my mind. You know, because David and his men, you look at the mighty men, the guys that showed up to him were just very, the Bible says that they were debt-ridden outcasts and bitter of soul. That's how it describes them, bitter of soul. And I've always loved how the Bible does that, because it's, God does not send to David all the varsity Christians of the day and say, hey, here's your pre-built army, go and conquer a kingdom. He's like, I'm going to send you the worst people in the kingdom. They're good at one thing, killing Philistines, killing Amalekites. Like, that's what they're good at. And all the whole, this idea that men have to kind of come in the door of the church, or their walk with Jesus has to look like what their wife's walk with Jesus looks like. We just, you know, your message has been that way. You guys have a culture, the kind of, in the old days, we call it the gym rat culture, where it's very alpha, very driven, very competitive. Danny, you're a martial arts guy. And it's blessed my heart to see how the material feeds that pursuit of excellence, right?
So like how David learned his lessons as a king whenever he was a shepherd.
Right.
And it was a parable for him. It's cool because I got to see it from you from a distance, and then God let me walk through it firsthand. And from this book is where I pulled a lot of the lessons and themes from. But the idea that we can grind through a workout, bleed, rip, sore, can't walk, and we love it, and we see the growth, we see it, we weigh it, it's worth it, we'll track our food, we'll do everything to make it. But to take those principles and to apply it to our pursuit with Christ, our family, our daughter, our kids, we don't do it. So whenever I was in it and I was seeing it, I was like, one man, David was one man, Jesus was one man, Moses was one man. What did they do? And it was like they were sold out for God. And I was like, okay, and so I was doing it on a baby level, open my gym, but then seeing you do it on the big stage, and you were like, what I've loved from a distance, and not fanboy at all. It's like, it's truly what it's looked like. It's been about God. Take it or leave it, money, fame, whatever. It's been about God and then my family. And it's cool to come up to your gym years later and see it continuously grow. But that's still the culture is it's God, it's family. Like you were like, I'm going to eat lunch with my daughter and then we'll hang out. And I'm like, dude, that's exactly biblical based. So to see it in the Day of War book and in 1st and 2nd Samuel, and then to kind of walk it through and stumble it through in life, it's like, man, that's it. It's not that complicated, you know?
Something you just said, and it's kind of a profound thing that I just kind of came to the conclusion. So, you know, I've been vocal about my faith, and I was brought up in the church, and I was brought up with very good Christian examples, all female. Josh Howerton, Lake Point Church in Texas. I've been listening to some of his stuff, and he did a sermon the other day, "What is a Man?" and all these things. It's kind of old at this point. It's like last year or something, but he was talking about basically if a child comes to faith, what that does to the family, like 20% or something like that joins. If a woman comes to faith, like the mom comes to faith, it's like 50-50. But if a man leads the family and is a Christian, then it's like 80-something percent, 90%, right? Wow. So for me, my dad went to church, didn't really talk about his faith. My grandfather went to church regularly, didn't really talk about his faith. My other grandpa was, by the time I was old enough to really know what was going on, he was pretty much bedridden at that point. So all my Christian examples were female. Nothing wrong with that, but it's hard to connect with. And it just didn't, I mean, yes, I would say that I was saved and I went to church and I believed those things, but you know, I've talked about how it was more of a Santa Claus God, or if things got tough, how I went to the Bible and cherry picked what I needed for me at that point. There was never an actionable, like my dad now is very like faith forward and in church more, and we'll talk about it. My grandfather, the same, left the Catholic Church at like 60 years old, like went to Notre Dame, was in choir. And one day I was just like, and he quit going to Catholic Church. I was like, why? You know, and my other grandma's like, she's Catholic, has a direct line to God. I'm 100% sure. Her name, like we named our daughter Violet after Violet. Like the woman is, and I have a ton of female
Yeah.
You know, and so it was hard for me to connect to that. And I think this was one of the first times having some male mentors around that time when I got into CrossFit Unity. You're talking about, you know, back in 2009, 2010, where I really started to like, you know, had that failure at the games where I got second and really did some introspective looking and like,
Get his book, by the way, if you haven't read it. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's only, it was 2012-ish.
Yeah.
You know, like I had let whatever I had done to that point become and define who I was. And it wasn't Christ who, you know, that's the long and the short of it.
Yeah.
But man, I just had this, you know, you talking about it is like, you know, I'd had really good Christian examples as females, and it's hard to connect. Like it's just hard as dudes. Like, you know, like you were saying, it's hard to publish a book when 90% or 75% of the books are bought by females. And so
it was birthed out of that. Yeah.
And man, we need more men to stand up and speak and say, hey, you know, like that's what's so cool about it.
Yeah, it was born out. So that's what motivated this was, among other things, was purely, you know, trying to reach men. But if you think about a typical boy's life until manhood, it's mostly women that are raising him. Usually he has a female teacher all the way through school. Again, this is not, this is, it's true. And it's also a bad thing and it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So it's the fact that what we're talking about is the pendulum swung so far to where a young man doesn't know how to become a man. There's not that same level of go spear yourself a lion and come back to the village and now you're a man. It got lost somewhere. So this was kind of an idea, like you said, Rich, it's exactly right. And in the church, my grandmother is actually the one that inspired me to write this one. And she's a Southern Belle, Mississippi. And she told me, now, Cliff, I want you to know, I was probably 12 years old. It's like, when you read about David in the Bible, he was a warrior first. Like our church is going to tell you things. Our church is going to tell you things about how he was a worship leader and he was those things, but he was a warrior first. And that planted a seed so far into my head that later on, I mean, she's with the Lord now, but that was the genesis of this idea of, I just got tired of seeing the cloth version of the story of David, where it's like David and Goliath, the little scrappy faced boy, you know, gets lucky with a slingshot, and then we skip right to Bathsheba. Yeah, and it's like that's it. That's all we know. That's all we know. I used to teach, and I would say, okay, I tell the crowd, I'm going to say David and everyone goes Goliath. Okay. David and Bathsheba. He did it right there. That's it. People didn't know that there's this entire period. Brotherhood of war. And David's mighty men. I mean, 2 Samuel 23, 1 Chronicles 11. If you don't read my book, great. You've got to read 2 Samuel 23 and 1 Chronicles 11. It's the deeds of the mighty men. It's just a list of guys that are doing incredible things. And there's no reason for that to be in the scripture apart from it being awesome. That's the theological reason for it. It's just awesome to read it. So yeah, I think that I see Rich and what you guys do with the Kavod Family Ministries, why it's such a good home for the series and my writing moving forward is because I think I felt very, very much like you guys got it. You got the vision of it. You understand, you know, there's a deep connection. The people who love this stuff really love it because it filled a gap somewhere, you know, and I've just been blessed to see that happen. So
we just did a black belt test with 3 teenage boys last weekend. And I remember talking about the fact that nowadays there was a time where a rite of passage from boy to man was like it was a thing, and now it's all gone. And I'm explaining it, and as I'm explaining it, I'm thinking, you know, their mothers are probably like, "Holy cow!" You know what I'm saying? But it's true though; they need that. You know, you talked about like giving that book out. I can't tell you how many copies of that book that I've given out since reading it. What do you have? Like anybody, like any memorable stories of like any guys that you've given it to, and you've seen their lives like.
Too many, honestly. You know, like Jake, who was at the gym, who's our director of online programming. I mean, has been with us since the beginning. There was a group of him and probably 4 or 5 dudes, and they were, you know, very very active in like campus ministries type stuff. But to see that, like, just, you know, almost like it just doubled down on what they were doing, and they like connected to it and had that kind of fiercity to it, you know, and it's the same thing, you know, I've said I'd never do it. And coaching youth sports, you know, coaching my son in baseball, I was like, absolutely not. But then when you see what some of the other people are doing, I was like, all right, I'll do it till it gets competitive, So we're doing coach's pitch.
Because you're not competitive.
Yeah, because I can't, and it was hard. Well, the hard part is disconnecting, 6 and 7 year olds playing versus a 35, 36 year old trying not to put their self-worth in what 6 and 7 year olds are doing, I know my limitations, and man, just to see the impact on some of these kids, there's a kid on one of our teams, his aunt came up on first practice. She's like, just so you know, I'm his legal guardian. Yeah. And you're just like, man, I might be the only positive male influence this kid, and he's tough. Mm-hmm. But man, if you can figure out, and it's been fun to see him kind of come out of his shell and what motivates him. And, you don't know what that impact you can have as being a man and being we're not good. None of us are good men, right? In the gold standard, but we can try, right? Yeah. And so we're all trying to be good men, and we're all going to fall short. But are we a man after God's own heart? When I screw up, where do I go? Do I come back to here and say, all right, speak to me?
No, mankind is made in the image of God, but it's tainted.
Tainted,
right? Mm-hmm. And so there's just a big gap between the tainted picture that people see of us and Christ and who He really is, and that bridge, the Spirit to make us like Him. This book, I want to mention this, the dedication that you put in it for the hearts of men, right? It really is an appeal. These books, the reason I love them so much is it really was an appeal to the heart of man that he could begin to fight. It's not that you're trying to make me go out and kill Philistines around me. There are no Philistines living in my neighborhood. But it is that I would begin to fight for the things that God has put me responsible over. It is that I would begin to fight against the things that are trying to tear that down, right? Whether that be my family, come against my children, come against our community, come against my marriage, right? There's a passion and a zeal in the heart of man that has to get developed to begin to fight for the things that God wants him to fight for. And your writing has always encouraged me through broken times and good times to do that.
Praise God.
Like you were saying,
sure.
you listened to this during Leadville?
Leadville, yeah.
I listened to this twice while I was building your gym. It was it was the narrative I needed in my head, that undertone that caused me to process through a lot of other things that I was going through in life.
It's incredibly encouraging to hear that. And I've told these guys before, part of what the life of the author is one of insanity, because you're so isolated all the time in your own head, and you're not out where people give you feedback. You kind of live in your own little
in a cave alone.
Yeah. And so then whenever someone says that, it kind of blows my mind. Wow, someone read the book. I guess it just still catches me off guard. But you're right. It's not I think one of the things that happens with a lot of Christian projects that are always well-meaning and they're God glorifying in the heart behind it, but they become very preachy very quickly because we can't help but preach. We want to start preaching. Yeah. But I think what I wanted to do with this was, in the taking the Old Testament stories and bringing them to life, I can't replace the Bible. That's not the idea. The idea is to say, think about it differently than what you're currently thinking about it. These were men that sweat and bled and died.
Real men.
Real. And they struggled exactly. There's 3,000 years of real estate between us and them, but it's exactly the same guy around that campfire that is around your gym after the workout, or if you're in the military, if you're just a blue collar worker, if you're an accountant, whatever you are. Men on mission together has a specific dynamic that is irreplaceable, right? That's right. It's irreplaceable. And just back to your point about the Christian media market, the challenge that can be it's about 80% female that buys that stuff. That's awesome. Jesus had a special relationship with the women around him, right? And so that's why this is not a no girls allowed club. In fact, women can be some of the most ferocious fans of this, because they go, wait a minute, I found something that my husband actually might want to read or listen to or encounter. And that they themselves like it because it doesn't have that. The other thing the church did, I'll get off my soapbox, but it's like everything, even women's ministry, has to be so kid glove now. It's like, I think both genders are looking, there's only two. Both of them are looking at, looking at this and saying, hey, we need something raw, and if it's not this, great, but find the real scripture, right? Not the glean.
But given that, like having my wife and my daughters read that helped them to understand us a whole lot better.
Heck yeah.
And they loved
Heck
it.
yeah.
Awesome.
It helped them because there's a lot that you have in there that you're not seeing out there anymore. Because let's be real, everything's just gotten so soft. Like that's why you don't have rite of passage anymore for boys, because everything's gotten so soft. When they read that, I remember, especially my wife talking, and you can see the wheels turning for her. Like, wow, this is truly how you guys think. And now I understand when you said about fighting for your family, what that means to you now. And it's like, this is not a joke. Like, this is for real. And so when you see men now starting to come back as a result of taking a story out of the Bible and not let it be just a story in the Bible anymore. Now you get to live this thing. It's a big difference between reading the Bible versus like experiencing it like real time, and that's what a lot of those books, man, are doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I feel like we're on a sales show, like one of those. But it's the other book you got there, the War Prayers book too. I wrote this one to kind of be a companion piece to the Line of War series and what I do, because it's just a daily. I heard over the years when I did get feedback for the work, and I would see speaking and all that, was men just have a hard time praying. It's awkward for them. Women are much more intimate with the Lord easier than men are. They get there faster with their intimacy with the Lord, right? Men are kind of like, dear God, thank you for my day and help me. Like that's kind of what it is. And I realized you read how David prayed in the Psalms, and it's so fervent. It's like he's almost got OCD. He's obsessive compulsive with these like, things are really awesome right now, but 3 minutes later they're really terrible.
I'm gonna die.
Save me, oh God, bless you, oh God, save me, oh God. And so I thought that kind of manic energy that he brought to a battlefield.
Well said.
But it was his relationship with the Lord. I mean, it was, and I think that the rawness of prayer had it. So I called it war prayers. Like, hey, pray like this. This is an example. It's like got a verse with a prayer that's like, hey, here's how I would pray that verse in practical language as a man. And the idea behind that is to think, I think the mission of what Kavod is, when we say for the hearts of men, yes, read a book and be entertained, God willing, but learn how to pray before your God, right? Learn how to lead your family in a way that is of the mighty men. I mean, this is the boundary around your family is your domain. God appointed you to that spot. It's like, protect it with your blood.
It may help to think of it like the whiteboard. A lot of people love the CrossFit community because you just walk in and there it is, and it is what it is, and you're gonna face
That's what you're gonna do it.
That's what you're gonna do.
And
they need that kind of stimulus, right? And that has been
right
that for me almost, many mornings driving.
Heck yeah.
I'll hand it to my boy or I'll read it, and it just becomes kind of the starting line of a prayer time with my son or whatever it would be.
To piggyback off what you were saying, another book, I don't want to promote another book, but the Wild at Heart, Adventure, Battle,
Same
Beauty.
thing.
Yeah.
That's right there in that book.
Sure.
I mean, that's why it speaks so much to our, I had my wife read that book because
Wild
then
at Heart?
she could, then she can understand that's how we're wired. Like she's like, why? Like, funny story, like I win the CrossFit Games 4 times on a team or as an individual and 6 times on a team. The year after, like I'm done. And so she thinks I'm done, right? I'm just going to, walk out in pasture and feed on grass, right? So I tell her, hey, I'm doing this mountain bike race in Leadville, Colorado. She's like, all right, I thought you were done with, not in a bad way, but she's, questioning. Like, I thought,
on your way home.
I thought you were done, and I'm like, yeah, but, I just, I want to do this race. It's a hard, like they say, it's the hardest mountain bike race. I'm into mountain biking right now. It's just, I need a challenge, right? I need something to aim at and something to push towards. And she's like, all right. Now, you think you can win? I was like, not a chance. Like, 200 pounds. Yeah. I'm not a cyclist. I'm for my size, I'm a good mountain biker. I have a mountain or dirt bike background and, I can suffer. She's like, okay, like, what do you get if you win? I'm like, first of all, I'm not going to win. I said, but if I finish sub 12 hours, I get a belt buckle. And if I finish sub 9 hours, I get a bigger belt buckle. And she's
That's all he needs.
A belt buckle. I'm like, yeah, it's awesome, right? And she's like, can't you just buy that on Etsy? I was like, I didn't earn it, so no, I can't, And so it's just, after reading and knowing the like, adventure, battle, beauty. Like those are the things men that speak. It's always spoken to us, right? Yeah. And some of that, now it's hunting for me where I go out and she doesn't understand. Hey, we're sleeping in a tent, not taking a shower for a week and eating food out of a package. And she's like, that sounds awful. But you know what? You come back better, clearer. Like, I'm going to let you go on that because, you know, I could be doing way worse, right? You know?
Sure.
And so
if we can, do you mind sharing a little bit about your community? Because I have found, and Travis, maybe you can talk to this too, the CrossFit world has given the average man and woman an outlet for their physical energy, their desires, their passion. It's a place to go fight every day, to sweat, to work out, to be next to somebody else that you grow and love and appreciate over time. Maybe you swap stories, that kind of thing. It has been the ongoing daily battle, you could say, that men want to experience, that people want to experience, right?
Challenge.
But it builds a community.
It does, man.
It changes a culture,
shared
right?
suffering, right?
It does.
There's a connection. There's you know, what people are going through. One, I think when people finish that workout, obviously they're more vulnerable. You're going to talk, maybe hang out before, hang out after. You create this, you know, that 8:15 group. All of our classes, you know, we always joke that they kind of click up and, you know, like, you know, turn into this, like you've got the 8:15 and they're way different than the 2 o'clock and the 2 o'clock's different from the 4 o'clock. And then, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they're all the same people though, you know, but they're all way different. And I've been around the world. A couple months ago, we were in Barcelona. We were in France, in Versailles, right outside of Paris. And then we were in Berlin. And then in Berlin, you had 400 or 500 gym owners from all across Europe. And man, it's the same people, same type of people that are attracted to CrossFit. It's that suffering, it's that shared suffering. It's the people that want that challenge, that are going to head into, you know, we always, our slogan for Froning Farms is into the storm, based off of Bison. We're out west, they go into a storm, so they're in it shorter amount of time than, you know, per se a cow that would stay away and try to get out of the storm. And so we know that in life, if we go at something and through something, it's better than, all right, hey, maybe I'll put that off and maybe it'll catch up to me later. Maybe it'll catch up to me later, versus just being like, all right, let's get this over with. And we're going to come out on, you know, looking for trouble per se, but you know, iron sharpens iron, all that stuff. It's like, we know that through hard things, we're going to be better, but, you know, meeting it head on versus, you know, trying to run away from it.
And as a man, I think your belt buckle analogy was fantastic. That's such a, we all immediately go, I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
Because you can buy it on Etsy, but you know what?
It doesn't mean anything.
Someone that asks you about it,
we're going to haze you.
We're
going to haze you.
It's like stolen valor, right? The military. So I think too, that's why I wrote the Caleb book. It was as we
Great
age,
book too.
as we age, men, I think there's a movie called Act of Valor that was pretty cool. It was about Navy SEALs, but the opening line of that movie was my favorite part, when the guy said, "The worst thing about getting older is men stop being afraid of you." I was like, that just stuck me right in the gut.
Yeah, heck
like, what an incredible line that is. And it's so true, because when you're in the prime of your health and of your life, and, you know, eventually you won't be able to throw that weight anymore. I won't be able to, you know, it's
whoop up on my son, you know, like he's starting to challenge, right?
So you always, that's what it's in you, to be restless, to try to pursue that excellence, because I think it's wired as a man. And then I think just, it's where you channel it is what matters. And yeah, we talk about that a lot. We're just,
I think Danny might be the one outlier. He's the one father that could always take his son, no matter how tall. This is Travis's father-in-law.
I let the kids know at the karate school, I'm going to get old one day, but I'm still coming to
Still gonna
sparring
do it.
class.
Yeah.
And if you hit me too hard, I'm going to have a cane in the corner.
I'm gonna whip you with it.
Beat the socks off of you. One way or the other,
That's
I'm
a splitter on you.
Love it.
One way or the other, I'm Yoda.
no, the journey of the mighty man, like I said, and it's the story is, for those watching that have no idea about any of this stuff, it's not about David. The books are not about him specifically. He's the structure of the story. His life is what the story is built around, but it's about the mighty men, the ones that came to him. And because I was deeply interested during my time in the Army, I thought about, what if we could just what would it have been like to be in the ranks of David's army? They're watching him and they think he's weird. I mean, they think he's odd.
Singing,
he sings
dancing,
a lot. He's he's the moody musician artist type, but he's also the most bloodthirsty killer on the battlefield. And it just, I thought that was a fascinating way, because that's kind of how men look at the Bible. Rich, just what kinds of things when you're just thinking about sharing your faith, you do it so easily and so fluently, like evangelist style, but on a one-on-one conversation with a guy at the airport, for example, that asks you about that, how easy is that for you to just start breaking down what motivates you? Is that like,
I think it's become easier,
Yeah.
as the track record has been there. When I'm early on in my faith, I'm like, I can't really prove it to you, other
Yeah.
than like, in everything that I do, and everything, I won't even say that I don't. I try to, Lord, show me your will through all this. That's my prayer. It's always been my prayer. Man, I played a little bit of college baseball, came home because I had a girlfriend here. They ended up winning the junior college national championship 2 years. I would have been there. That's neither here nor there. But I worked in a factory, which was terrible. Whole time like, God, just show me what you want me to do. Firefighter from there. Honestly, I thought to this point, like if I was to look at my life then, I'd been like, oh, I'd be a firefighter. I'll retire from there. And then this thing CrossFit comes along and it's like, all right, God, show me what you want me to do there. And then for 7-8 years, I thought, the day after the CrossFit games that year, I would go back to the fire department every year up until probably 2020 when you came to the gym. I was like, all right, maybe we can make this Mayhem thing last for a little while, But like at no point was I like, oh man, like I'm going to have to go back and be a firefighter. I was like, all right, God, maybe that's what you show me, And to back up to 2011, I had this, faith journey where I'd realized, CrossFit had become my identity, or whatever I'd done to that point had become my identity. Baseball, firefighting, CrossFit then, and to have those things and realize they're only worldly things, had a great group of mentors and dudes that were like, hey, you should look into this thing called, the Bible, like actually read the Bible and look at what Jesus did. And so, I had the tattoo, Galatians 6:14, and man, I never boast anything except for the cross of the Lord Jesus Christ, which has been crucified to me and I to the world. And so, I'm at the CrossFit games, I, do well in the open, win the regional, go to the games. And I'm like, sweet. I remember driving to the first event where they put us on this bus and it's 4 a.m. and we're going out to the Santa Monica Pier to do this swim, run, pull up, push up, squat, run thing. And reading the Bible, and Jeremiah 29:11 just happens to pop up. I didn't pick it. It hopped up, and for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and keep you. I'm like, all right, here we go. 27th. And I'm like,
all right.
But at no point, like that was the point that I knew that it was a real thing and there had been real change.
Yeah.
I'm not okay. Like I hate the, Christians are soft and not competitive thing. But I was like, all right, God, are you trying to show me that I need to be a humble loser at this point?
Loser,
and like, be honest, like, is this real? And I'm like, if that's what you're trying to show me, all right, cool. And at that point I was like, yes, if I lose, I hate losing still. Like we lost 2 softball games. We're in a men's league. It's the most humbling thing that I've been in. Like we got a bunch of good baseball players and we're getting whooped up on by some guys that, vaping in the dugout and drinking beer. And you're just like, this doesn't make sense until you hear their bats hit. And then I'm like, all right, I get it. Never mind. Something's in that bat. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I'm like, I still hate losing, and I still hated losing then. But I knew that my identity wasn't in whatever I was doing. I knew that my identity was in Christ. And so I still have that. And I'm like, Lord, wisdom of Solomon, show me what your will is in this. What am I supposed to do? Like I've had, some stuff going on in the last couple months about, with the uncertainty of CrossFit and what my future would be in that. And the whole time I'm like, God, show me. And I got to the point where I'm like, make it obvious, because I'm still like, I need your help. And you know what? Yesterday, it became as clear as clear could be. At first I'm like, oh, I could see where you show me this, you show me. And the whole time I'm like, show me, just show me, please. Wow. Then that was my prayer, right? It's like, just show me. And man, 2 days ago, he was like, here it is. And I was like, wow, done. Damn. All right. Yeah. That's it. Right, all right. There. I trust you. And so
that's awesome.
And man, that's it. Like that's how that's my pitch, right? And and that's my airport pitch. Right. And it's you have to live it and you have to believe it, or else people are going to see right through it.
Sure. The clarity, like you said, even if it's about trying to de-emotionalize the faith, right? Emotions are so important and critical for intimacy, but ultimately God wants you to do his will first. Like do what I tell you to do where I lead you, be obedient. In that process, you start to feel the loving heart of the Father. Like you're responding and wanting to serve and please him in obedience, right? But that's a mystical, gooey sounding thing. So that's why with dudes, you kind of just got to be like, pray about what you think God wants you to do in your life right now, from the small scale to large scale. He may be quiet on most of that stuff, but there's something today there's something you can ask his will for today.
Yep.
Just show me the next thing I'm supposed to do that pleases you, Lord. And then you start to see that river broaden as you go. You start to feel that.
It has to be real though.
Yeah.
You know,
It's the heart posture. If you mess up, he's a good dad. He's like, all right, you're good to hear.
Yeah.
All right, now we're gonna fix
Yeah,
it. Do it
correct.
again. Go do it again.
Yep.
And that's it.
You obviously have your own legacy. Froning has his own legacy. Mayhem has its own legacy, right? It's going to hopefully outlive
That's
you.
the plan, man.
Um,
I would like for it not to have to be anything to do with me. You know, like that's where I'm trying to get it to.
Okay, so here's my question, and this is maybe what's I think about this often as a father, because you're trying to impart something to your children, hoping they're going to impart it to your grandchildren, right? You're trying to do that. What are you doing that you believe is causing Mayhem to become something that really is a light of Christ to many for years to come after you?
Yeah, man, I think it's that heart posture. It's that faith, like Faith Family Fitness Service. We're not hiding behind faith in a God. We're the God.
You're being clear about it.
Yeah, we're being clear about it being into, people can say, oh, well, faith is what it is to you. And I'm like, no, it's faith in Jesus. That's the hard line there. And at times people are like, you really want to stand up? And I'm like, that's who I am. That's who we're going to be. And man, that's the, that praise on there. But you also see there's a Bible verse on there. It's right there.
And the Bible sitting on the table.
And
when
the
you buy
Bible
shirt.
sitting on the table, right? And I'm not saying that to say, I try to get it across that like, hey, doesn't mean we're better than you. Mm-hmm. It's a hospital. It's not church is a hospital. This is what we screw it up. And that's why they're, that connection to that book, man, is so, it's here. It's not, it's not to say that it's going to be easy if you make that decision to follow Christ. That's going to get harder. Yeah. There's going to be more critics. There's going to be people that want to see you fail, right?
Did that get birthed in you before you started Mayhem, or was it along the road that you realized, no, this belongs to
So Mayhem we had Mayhem originally. And then I kind of got into the CrossFit space, had, pretty immediate success. And then that immediate fall, I got second place. Right. And it was a real fall. It was off a real fall. Right there. Metaphorically, physically, all of it, Yep. And in that process, we joined with CrossFit Cookeville. He was Chip Pugh, who started CrossFit Faith, who was real instrumental as a Christian mentor. He owned CrossFit Cookeville, and it was at the strength and conditioning facility at Tennessee Tech. So we merged CrossFit Mayhem with CrossFit Cookeville. We did that for a year or so, and then he had started CrossFit Cookeville because him and his wife were going through some infertility stuff. Well, then they end up having 2 daughters. And so he had kind of obviously had, put everything, taken all of his heart that was in CrossFit Cookeville into his daughters and had wanting to kind of get out of the strength and conditioning stuff. So he was like, hey man, I'm going to close down the affiliate. And he was actually stepping away as a strength coach. And I'd had some, interesting conversations with the athletic director at Tennessee Tech about some sponsorships that I had gotten, and he had basically told me I had to make a choice. And so I made my choice because he had made it clear what his opinion was, and I disagreed with that. And so we reopened. We were at a crossroads, and so we were like, all right. Chip was like, hey, I'll give you CrossFit Cookeville. You can use that name. Obviously, it's a way less intimidating name. CrossFit's already a little bit more intimidating, especially back in 2012 at this point. And, we had named CrossFit Mayhem after my cousin, Donnie, who had passed away. Our favorite movie at the time was Fight Club, and Project Mayhem was kind of burst out of that. Yeah. And so I'm like, well, let's go with CrossFit Mayhem. We'll put the Galatians 6:14 on the logo at all times. Just, so people see that that's there. But yeah,
soften it up.
But the day when we rebirthed CrossFit Mayhem, it was, we weren't concrete with the Faith Family Fitness Service. We've kind of over the last couple of years, we need words to attach to what we actually feel. People knew, every shirt that we put out had 6:14, Galatians 6:14 somewhere on the shirt. And, I'd say in probably 2019, 2020, I had a good friend, Jim Hensel, and he's got this, it's really cool. Look into it. We kind of branded as Mayhem Mindset, but, it's not a motivational thing. It's like, hey, let's figure out who you are, how you're wired as a man, what you're let's put some words to what you believe. And so I did that personally. In the process, I was like, my first 4 values are faith, family, fitness, service. That's how I'm wired. I was like, we're just going to attach that to Mayhem. That's what we're going with. So I would say that was the point where, you know, we've always been faith forward. You know, obviously I have Galatians 6:14. I still have a sleeve designed that is Jesus. It's basically the whole gospel down my arm, and my wife will not let me get it. So, but I mean, one day maybe, you know, like it's. I'll show it to you in a minute, but it's
maybe if you win
it's a
Leadville,
surprise
she'll let you
anniversary
get it.
gift for her.
It's
Right?
Yeah, she'd love that. Let me tell you. So, but yeah, man, we've always been faith forward, and me personally, and then, you know, we've done it as the gym or as Mayhem as a brand. But, you know, I think we were like, all right. And then at some point, you know, when you see that faith side of it, you know, we had people that were like, do we really want to, like, you know, do we want to leave it open? I was like, no, it's so bizarre to me that the life of Jesus is so divisive, you know, like, you know, you people are good with you saying faith and God and those types of things. But as soon as you say Jesus,
that's the defining
and
factor.
we just we do an Into the Storm. We kind of brought it back podcast about, man, where we are just on our faith walk. And we were going over John 1 and like, you know, the kind of main, we just did 1 through 18, and it was, is Jesus God? Yeah. And you're like, well, if he's not, then what are we doing? Yeah. You know, like
this is everything.
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. But it, you know, it's people get so,
they get weird,
you know, about that. And you're just like, man, you know, I don't know. To me, it's not weird, you know. And then I've got a buddy that's so into the Shroud of Turin, and I'm like, he's like, why are you not more amped up about this? I'm like, because it doesn't matter to me. I don't need to know that it's real. Like, I already believe it. You know,
like, back to life.
I'm
That's
like, easy, Thomas, chill out. You know, like, and he's like, you know, but it's just so cool.
He has to know what he looks
like.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, man.
No.
Like, I don't need it. You know, so it's just funny.
Yeah.
So.
Go ahead.
One of the things you and I were talking about, Casey, was the local community. What's cool about how, you know, in the kind of the peak and height, as you were like, again, doing the back-to-backing, and it was kind of the brand was exploding, and you didn't like move to LA, set up shop in some glass encased, you know, you stayed here in rural Tennessee. And so whatever God's doing, that you knew he was going to do, it was going to be in this community, right? Like, you mentioned your love of community multiple times over the years. And that's what I think is cool about this ministry. They're based in Franklin, North Carolina, small town. What's grounded you? Like, are you still just much a lover of this area as always?
Yeah, man. You know, we're in a good spot where people would say, you know, a pocket. We're the belt buckle of the Bible Belt. Yeah. There's just good people here. You know, it's where I grew up. You know, here I'm Janice's or Rich Senior's son. You know, I'm not Rich Froning, the CrossFit Games champion, and that's fine with me. You know, like, my kids are starting to kind of understand. My oldest kind of understands it. My son thinks it's the coolest.
People recognize dad all the time.
Well, yeah, they're like, who is that? And I'm like, I honestly have no. The problem is, you know, all my life is on YouTube, right? Yeah. And so people know me and know things about me, and then I'm just like, and I have had to tell my kids, I'm like, don't ask me who that is until we're out of earshot. Because they'll be like, yeah, who is that? And I'm like, they're standing right there still, you know, like, chill out. And so, man, this is home for us, right? You know, it's the values that this, you know, we're in a bubble, you know, like, and I'm okay with that, you know, like, yeah, I like the people here. I like, you know, how our lives are. I mean, we have 160 acres. We have another bubble inside of our bubble, right? I can walk out my front porch and go deer or turkey hunt. And I've got a hunting lease 1.5 miles up the road. Like, why else? You know, the only place I could ever see myself is somewhere out west, you know, like, the more and more I've gotten into Western hunting, like, I could see myself. I told Hillary, I was like, hey, minus your birthday on the 17th of September every year, when our kids get old enough and they want to go, when they want to go with me, or if they don't want to go with me and I'm just here, I'll probably be in one of the 5 states that hold Rocky Mountain elk. That's right. All of September during archery season. Then I'll be gone. I'll be back. You know, like, whitetail, I can sometimes get into it. Maybe in November, but you know, I will be out west for a while. You know, there's just something special about it, man. I have a weird obsession with American history as well, and so I feel like that's kind of the last piece of it left, right? You know, like, there's just something special about it. Wow. Yeah.
So maybe to wrap this up, we'll go in this direction. The name of our ministry, Kavod Family Ministries. Kavod, Travis ended up naming his gym Kavod Fitness. He did it because he had came across one of your books In it, you introduce the whole story. The whole book was written, and in the beginning, it talks about kavod, the weightiness and the glory of God. That word, that Hebrew word that talks about the glory, the weightiness of God, the heaviness of God. And so he thought, man, this is just a great branding for what I want to create in our gym. We called it Kavod Family Ministries because we sat down and we looked at everything that these guys were tied into, and then a number of others were laced into a fitness center, a karate. Danny's been in martial arts for 25?
Almost 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah, man.
Boxing, jiu-jitsu, there's a volleyball club, soccer, a number of things that we just get to be a part of. And we thank God every day that we get to be a part of it. And we said, these things are all great, but ultimately our aim is to see the family restored because we believe that a strong family creates a very strong community.
Yep.
You lose family, you lose the culture.
Yep.
And we thought, you know what, at the head of the culture or at the head of the family is the father. And so for us, it was about restoring the weightiness of God to men, the father figure.
Yep.
For you, what is God showing you? What is he teaching you? How do you pass on? How do you impart this dedication to God that you have? How do you impart your faith, in the face of any opposition to your children, to your wife, to your family? Can you share some of that?
Man, I think it's that airport pitch, right? You got to live it out first. Your kids have to see, your kids, your wife are going to be the ones that, you can put on this fake facade publicly, right?
Okay.
But your family's going to know, in the darkest of dark, what goes on in between those four walls or whatever you want to say. So you've got to live what you say. I feel like because kids can see through it. And man, so far, I would give myself, probably a 75, I guess, or maybe a 66, because my youngest daughter and my oldest daughter both April 5th got baptized, right?
Oh.
And at no point was I ever like, hey, you need to do this.
That's awesome.
My 6-year-old, then now 7, was like, Dad, I want to get, like, she asks some of the like coolest, heaviest questions, like, who's God's mom? I'm like, Violet, God exists outside of time, but dude, like some cool, hey, can we pray? And and yes, let's do it. And so, I need, for me, you talked legacy, like those 3, obviously my wife too, like, we're in this together, but what those 3 turn into, like we can't control everything, but I can, make them a man or a woman after God's own heart and teach them and show them that I am. And hopefully they pick up on that and see that as real, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not just a fake. It's not, my dad lived it out. My dad was a man. And I've had to admit when I'm wrong to them and, hey, I'm sorry that I got that, angry, or, I'm sorry. Like my oldest is getting to it. She'll be 11 and we're having like real conversations where I'm like, hey, like, I see that you're emotional and obviously we're different. She's female, I'm a man. And so I'm like, let's, I'm trying to like impart a little bit. And I'm like, hey, I see that, your anger is like, we got to be able to control that and try to, man, it's being a dad is the most rewarding. It's the most,
awesome.
It's helped me to connect to or understand. I'll never understand fully God, the grace of God, but understand that at some level, with kids, like they could be the meanest, say the nastiest things, but 2 minutes later say, I love you. And I'm like, all is forgiven, right? Obviously punishment and those types of things, we've got to like, teach them that there are limits and things, but man, it's being a father has been the best thing ever to help me understand that relationship. And man, I just, that's what I want. I want them to see and know is like, that I tried, right? Phil Robertson, love God and try to be good. Yeah. That's all we can do. And that's my pitch.
No, I love that, you're at the tip of the spear when it comes to the CrossFit community. You're absolutely clueless on what to do next. And even you have to seek God for counsel in your life. And that example testifies more to a child than the discipline, what you ask them to do, knowing that dad is walking with God.
Yep.
That's all I know. I know that man walks with God.
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know.
And if we can live that out, it definitely does pass on a legacy to
absolutely. I had a buddy, and man, I never thought about it this way, obviously you got a phone in your hand all the time. I listen after I drop the kids off. I listen to Through the Word. That's my, like it's got a 10-minute little devotional and then reads the verse, 10, 15 minutes, depends on what it is. And then, or I read my Bible on my phone. One of my buddy was like, hey man, he's like, we don't ever see each other. We talk more via phone or text or whatever. And he was like, just something it's been on my heart. We kind of talk about just faith stuff or challenges. And he's like, I challenge you to get in your physical Bible because our kids see us on their phone. They don't know what we're doing, right? But they know when you open that book or that Bible that, Dad's. And I was like, ow, because, I am getting in the Word. I am doing those things. And not like, I'd say, of a month, in the month, 25 days, like there's weekends and, kids and stuff get in the way. And I'm like, dang it. Like I try to, at the end of the night, I have faith, family, fitness. Like, how did I do faith wise today? How did I do fitness wise or family wise and then fitness? And I usually like try to be as objective as possible, 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10. Obviously, mostly the fitness. Like I have a weird obsession, probably substance abuse on fitness. So that one is honestly, truthfully, the easiest one for me to do. But I have to be intentional with the faith and be intentional with the family stuff, right? And so, it's consistency. Short memory on good days, short memory on bad days. And
but you've, at least in the way that you express it with Mayhem, you've not separated those. It's not like, you go to school and every age is segregated out and separated. You walk into your gym and the first thing screaming at you is Jesus, right?
Yep.
And it's in your community, it's in your culture. And the more we allow those things to kind of grow together, you realize you don't have to separate these things apart. Life is better with them all woven together, right?
Absolutely.
So, guys, do you got anything to close this out? I know this is, we just really appreciate you coming. This has been a 20-year project for this man. And Kavod Family is honored.
Felt every day of it.
Well, it's weighty for us to know that we get to be a part of taking this across the finish line. And there's a lot of regular men like us, like
all of us, man,
that we read book 1 and 2 and it changed our lives. Some people found book 3. Not all of us got a copy of book 3. No one has the audio book of book 3.
No audio.
It doesn't exist.
And so
that's where I need it,
we can say that we're in the process of
finishing it up.
Finishing 3, getting 4 and 5, all that in the pipeline.
Gosh, so excited.
This year you'll see book 1, 2, and 3 reproduced.
Yep.
Those are the expanded editions: Day of War, Covenant of War, Song of War, redone. Hopefully all the audio book done right now. Call in, tell Cliff you want to hear his voice as the author.
Yes. No one wants to hear my voice.
This is just selfish. Shadows, is that you working on?
We would love to finish that one too. That's owned by another publisher, but that's there's.
Man, that was a good one.
Okay. Wasn't it good?
Man, in the stage, there's so much like you were saying, you're not dangerous.
Yeah.
That was such a, it spoke to me at that, because I think at that point when that one came out, I was either finishing up individual or I can't remember what was going on, but I was like, there was something there, It
was just this, it was seeing all the old men at church kind of feeling like they were left out, like all the young bucks were running things. And that was my love letter to them was Caleb, 85 years old. I'm just as strong as ever.
Yeah. Give me the land with the men
give me
on
that
it.
land. The most dangerous possible piece of real estate is mine.
That's mine.
I love it, man.
It's the best. Yeah. No one's taking my turn on the watch either. So I don't even think about it. Yeah. No, I love that book. That was my favorite one to write. And I would love to finish that series too. It was, again, as with the story of me in the past 10 years was not finishing everything. So it was, we're trying to redeem that. I'm trying to get
finish strong.
Finish it.
Yeah, hey, actually,
I'm around motivational people. So
we did an Into the Storm kind of series on David and Saul and all that. And the underlying theme was finish.
Yeah.
Finish it. Because David at the end, it started to kind of
that's right.
Things started going kind of crazy. And so, man, it's been finish. And it's such a good, you can have that one if you want it, finish.
That's it. Yeah. It's just branded on the forehead.
Well, it's the audience, not just, just, it's like, hey, it's an everyday thing. Like, don't give up, just keep doing it.
Every day is a day of war.
That's right.
Give the audience, because many listening, all of us, where are you at in this journey? How much of it's written? It was 5 separate stories. Not really. It was 5 stories, but now you're having to write all 5 together at once, right? There's a narration that you're weaving between all 5 books that has stitched
Right.
these together. So if you read the original Day of War,
Mhm.
you really do have to go back and read this.
It's the same story. It's the same story. It's just in a different framing than what the original version was. So it's still the same exact thing happens in it, but what I'm able to do now is do my original vision that, again, I never had the time to really flesh it out in the years since I published it the first time, but this is the director's cut, if you will. That's the way I think about it, right? I'm able to add things I wanted to add before. I'm, finishing it. There's that word again. So I think with all of that, it's just everything is written. So 1 through 5 are drafted. I should say 1 through 3 are being revised right now. 4 and 5 are drafted. So yeah, my plan is to just do nothing else this year, if at all possible, but finish 1 through 5 in their final form.
Yeah.
And be undistracted. So my wife has made it very clear. The excuse train left a long time ago. So it was
As they do.
as they do. So no, yeah, and that's that. And then we've got just the relationship with Kavod. So for people, if they like my writing, if they've been blessed by it, which I've been honored to hear from you guys, Kavod Ministries is where they can find that from now on. It's the nonprofit ministry that people can support, get behind. We'd love to make epic movies of this. I mean, we would just love to do it.
We'll train them. We'll train all the dudes.
Absolutely. I'm serious. Bring them out to the farm and
Heck yeah, let's
make
do
them
it.
roll in the mud. Yeah.
You can film here if you want. There's
That's
some good spots. There's some,
I'll take you up on
yeah,
that.
heck yeah.
And how are we going to cast you? I mean,
Hey, I'm in.
We'll throw
Give
it
me
in.
a job. I'll do it. I'll be an extra. I don't even have to have my name doesn't need to be in the. I just want to be in it.
We'll throw
somewhere.
them in there. Oh
I
yeah, there you go.
got it, man. Shamgar.
There we go. I'll just keep
There
growing
it
my
is.
beard.
That's right.
I'll just keep growing my beard.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh,
Love
guys,
it.
we'll look for it. By the time you see this video, Day of War will be live. You can buy it on Amazon, and we are working hard to get it in.
Request
all
it
the
from your
major
local bookstore too.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, how does that work? Because once we get it hooked in with Ingram, go to your local bookstores, go to the major
Library.
bookstores.
You can ask for if the distributor Ingram is the source for everywhere people order books, right? So your public library, you can request it. Just give them the name and the author's name, and they can. Your local bookstore. Any and all avenues are great, but if people do that, if they see demand for it by people requesting it, then that's locally they'll get involved in trying to help promote it too. Because there's
Right.
people interested in this book. Let's help out. So yeah.
Heck yeah.
Mhm.
Right on. Well, right
Fired
now,
up.
go ahead.
I'm fired up. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it, man.
We're going to go convince Cliff and Rich to do a workout. We're going to get it on video together.
Don't have to convince me anything. I'm in.
And thanks for listening, guys.
Appreciate it.